Welcome back to Blood Guts and Thunder, everyone. We've got our official Suriname correspondent, Dion Brunings, back on the show to cover the Gold Cup in this first segment. Eventually we're going to start all the way back at the World Cup qualifying game because we never really got to talk about that, unfortunately.
That's true.
Yeah, but firstly, I want to start off with I guess your feed over these past few weeks because you traveled with this Suriname team to the Gold Cup, and I mean that's my dream one day, maybe to travel with the Canadian team. So what's your experience been like? Do you have any cool stories from your trip?
Cool stories. Whew. It was very, very, very hectic. I could tell you something. Traveling during COVID times isn't a ton of fun.
No.
Although my nose is all, I think the holes in my nose are a bit bigger. I think I did like 6 PCR tests because you needed a test to go in the stadium. You
Yeah,
need
they
a test to
jammed that right to
travel.
your brain, huh?
They jam that. I must confess they're a little bit more gentle in the United States compared to back home here. So or maybe I'm a little bit more accustomed to the PCR test. But it was an amazing experience. Of course, for us it was the first time we went in to the Gold Cup, and we were not really far from the hotel of the players. I think it was like 10 minutes walk or something like that. So we were with the team a lot. We got to mingle a lot with the team. It was awesome because we have professionals, we have local players, and then you have us as media. You also have staff. So it was a little bit strange in the beginning, but after that, it was a big happy family, and we maybe didn't get the results we would like, but it was most definitely a very good experience, and I think we really did play. We played a good tournament. We played a good tournament.
Yeah, we're gonna talk all about what Suriname's gone through at this tournament later, because yeah, we're obviously been focusing more on the Canadian team, but like as the Gold Cup is developing as a tournament, I think it's important to cover like the best stories, and Suriname with um, bringing in the new talent it's brought in, it is one of those better stories of this tournament. So I want to go all the way back to the World Cup game. Um, that was obviously hyped up a lot on both sides. We were both looking forward to that upwards of a year. Um, and like for the first 20, 30 minutes or so, it was quite competitive, I would say. Um, just do you want to walk us through that game and sort of maybe what you think went wrong for the Suriname team? What wasn't ideal, perhaps?
It wasn't really ideal that there was a guy on the field who was worth 75 million
Yeah.
US dollars. So that was not really ideal,
No.
and he had a partner in crime. So actually, there's a lot. There's been said a lot about tactics, but at the end of the day, Canada has a lot of quality, and in Alfonso Davies, in Jonathan David, are just like world class players. Alfonso Davies is world class. I think he's the best wing player in the whole of Concacaf. So we faced off against a bigger opponent. What was not really talked about here is the midfield of Canada. The midfield of Canada were the unsung heroes, in my opinion. Those guys played us off the pitch. They were real workhorses of the midfield, and I think you guys could be really proud of them. I don't know if they got the praise that they deserve back home, back in Canada, but that was actually what was weak, what was the big difference between us. Of course you guys have the world class talent, and that showed, but these matches, most of the time the individual qualities in one-off matches, yeah, it just comes true, and that's what happened. We made an error in the defense by Leerdam, but that is personal opinion. I think Leerdam didn't expect Davies to be. Hey, of course, he expected it, but he was surprised how fast Davies was there and how easily he could control it. It was just another level. There's been a lot said of starting with Dion Malona on the midfield, playing with two two pivots in the central of the midfield. We haven't done that in the previous matches. We only played with one defensive midfielder. The match against Canada, we played with two. There's been a lot said about that, but all the matches in the Gold Cup, we played with two defensive midfielders. I'm just finished with an interview with Dean Corey, and he said that is the way forward. So Canada was actually a very good stepping stone for us. We lost, but we lost to a much better opponent. And actually, after that, there were only lessons that we learned, and the bigger, the better team won.
That's a great way to put it. Something you pointed out was the focus on Davies and David individually. Something our coach John Herdman said after the match was, everyone else who contributed. Davies, of course, that was probably his best game of World Cup qualifiers. I told you that he was going to be deployed as a winger, not as a left back. And then John Herdman sort of just surprised us all by playing a back three against you guys, which we had never done before up to that point. I wonder if that sort of factored into the performance, because I almost wonder if you guys were expecting us to play our traditional back four, and we sort of had a surprise formation. Do you think that factored into the result at all?
Yes, yes, it did. It did a lot. It was tactically, it was actually we got out coached because Alfonso Davies, it looked as if he had a free roll on the middle of the park, but that was because they had numerical superiority against us. And that is because guys played with a back three and you have five midfield players. We had Sherry, who isn't really a defensive minded midfield player, and then we had the two guys in front of them, Leerdam and Koolwijk. So there was always a numerical superiority for Canada, and we didn't adapt. And that was what I was pretty pissed about. I thought we could do the same thing, play with a back three and just match up person for person. That was an option. It was a legitimate option because we had three amazing central defenders on the bench. We didn't adapt to that, and that then contributed a lot to the win. That yeah, you guys out coached us, and I'm not happy about that, of course.
And you say you guys learned a lot of lessons from that match, but I think in the same way, like Canada was unproven up to that point. We hadn't really faced a team of Suriname's quality with the formation, I guess, this back three that we're planning to use going forward. And yeah, I think seeing as a winger, as much as we love Alfonso Davies, he's vulnerable to a low block because he's not as experienced with getting around a defense that's sort of just solely dedicated to him. But like seeing what he was able to do as a wing back, maybe something a lot of people hadn't considered. Yeah, that game it's going to be a big part of what Canada does in the future. So I think like regardless of the result, like I think both of our countries learned a lot from that game, and it was I don't know, it was really special.
Yeah, and it was, how should I put it? Even though we weren't expecting it, the back three and a wing back for Alfonso Davies, when it was employed, I was like,
Yeah, it made
that
sense.
that that's not a real bad option. Actually,
No,
maybe it's the best option. So
because
it, of
that way
course,
he's not stuck at the back, but he's also not.
exactly.
Yeah,
But of course, what you needed to do is you needed to sacrifice a player up front. So he made a big decision in leaving Cavallini out, who scored 5 goals. We were in the same situation. We had Fleiter, who was playing up front. and we did not sacrifice him for maybe Mitchell Kufrid, who would have maybe fitted the role better. So it was a tough decision to make because how do you leave somebody out who scored 5 goals? But he made that decision. It was a tough one, and yeah, it was a once again, no, it was a good formation, and it worked out perfectly for you guys.
I want to fast forward to the Gold Cup. So, like you said, Suriname learned a lot of lessons from the Canada game. But were there any changes in particular that Dean Warre made since the going into the Gold Cup since the Canada game?
Yeah, so there were changes made, some out of necessity because three of our central defenders did not come. Shaquille
Yeah,
Pinas,
I
he has
noticed
a new
that.
contract. Excuse me, what was your question?
Oh no, sorry, I was just go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So Shaquille Pinas, he has a new club. He's gonna play in Bulgaria. The other player was Meaghen Abena, also central defender, and Lewin also got a new club in the second division, the air first division as it's called in Holland, second highest level. But those two guys, Pinas and Abena, they needed to play the playoff rounds or the qualification rounds for the Champions League. So they didn't come to the Gold Cup. So out of necessity, he had to put Dion Malone to play centrally in defense, and he did a phenomenal job. I wasn't expecting that of him. Of course, he played centrally in the defense for his team, but he's mostly a midfield player. So that was one of the changes. Another change he made is that we got a quality boost out of Ajax. That's Sean Kleiber, and Kleiber played as right back. The right back player of us, Damiel Dankelui, was moved to midfield. So we actually had three right backs on the court. We looked like England up on a certain point, but we had three right backs. Leerdam played central on the midfield. Dankelui played central on the midfield, and Kleiber, of course, he played as right back. So those were the changes. And personally, I was a big fan of Dion Malone, who wasn't playing on his normal position, and Damil Dankerlui, who was also playing out of position. But that guy has the lungs, man. He played an amazing tournament as in out of position. So those were the tactical changes.
Who do you think was Suriname's best player at this tournament?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I think for me, Dion Malone played an amazing tournament. Central in the defense, even better than Ryan Donk, if you ask me. But I also think that Diego Biseswar did a fantastic job. Biseswar, he was creative. He held on to the ball. I think all the matches we had more possession than our opponents, and that says a lot. I think Jamaica is top tier in the Concacaf, top tier ish. If I saw them against the US, I need to I need to do something about my opinion. But of course, Leon Bailey didn't play it, and Hector didn't play, so that's a different team. And we had more possession. We played against Costa Rica, and all the stats we were better. So Biseswar was a very good player. I think he was the best player, but my favorite player, it has to be Riciano Haps. I think he's one of the best left backs in CONCACAF. He doesn't lose any battle. Yeah, for me, Hops again was amazing, but it has to go between those three guys: Hops, Biseswar, and Dion Malone. Please don't let me choose.
Well, speaking of hops, looking over CONCACAF, and everyone's rosters, I was sort of thinking that maybe Suriname has the best fullback pair in the whole region, with Hobbs at left back, Kleiber at right back. There's close competition because if Davies ever gets played at left back, Canada's in the conversation, no matter who we put it right back. The U.S. obviously has Sergino Dest, but I don't think there's any other team who has the same quality on both ends. Do you think? Would you agree?
I would agree. We're very blessed with our fullbacks. Kleiber is He's amazing, man. He just gives a whole nother level of quality. He's feisty. The goal that we scored against, I think it was against Costa Rica, is born out of Kleiber's work. So Kleiber played an amazing job. He was, in my opinion, a little bit at fault at the goals because of his positioning. But no, I don't think there's a better pairing. Although America does run us close, considering Des can play at both left and right back. So those are, yeah, I think that maybe the U.S. has a better pairing than we do, but we're up there. We're definitely up there.
For me, the surprise player for Suriname from the games I watched and from what everyone was commenting on the Suriname Facebook page, which I have continued to follow, was Ivenzo Convalius. Is that correct
Yeah.
pronunciation? Yeah, I hadn't really heard of him before this tournament, and I guess he was in the second tier of Croatia before he went and signed in Slovakia. But yeah, he really impressed me with his technical skills, and he definitely wasn't the headline of the Suriname team going into the tournament. Do you think he's going to be a big part of your group going forward?
So there's a lot of buzz been made about Comfalius. Yes, he was playing in Slovakia. Then he was loaned out to play in the second division in Croatia, and I think he's back in Slovakia
Okay,
again now. So he's a player who is homegrown. He played for a club here that is called Transvaal. Transvaal is one of the biggest clubs in our history. We won the Caribbean Cup a couple of times. So there's a lot of buzz being made about Convalius to start every match. Personally, I just asked Dean Jorge what his opinion is, and of course, Florian Josefsson is doing a good job. Geraldo Becker is doing a good job, and the wing players, especially the wingers in on the front line, are an essential part of our football. That's the manner in which Dean Curry wants to play. He wants to play with wingers, wants to get him in 1v1 situations, and wants to dominate the ball. Personally, I don't really know if Comfalius is better as a starter or better as a substitute player, because he's one of the only players in this Gold Cup who always does something. It's high risk. If you lose the ball, we're prone for a counter attack, but he does something, and that is what I'm missing for out of the modern wingers at this in this era. He's dangerous, man. He's very dangerous. He needs to sort things out if he's starting, so that he can hold the level of the level of the threat that he delivers the full 90 minutes. But every match, almost everybody in Suriname was asking for more Comfalius, more Comfalius, more Comfalius. So I hope he gets maybe a move to a bigger club, or that he plays more often in Slovakia, because he impressed, man, and you saw that correctly.
maybe it could be like a super sub type player, like we say. We've sort of seen that's sort of been Junior Hoylett, the championship guy in the past for us. Maybe he could be one.
Yeah, some pinch hitter type of player, because
That's right.
when he comes in the match, it changes. He's always dangerous. He played against Jamaica, one of the best defenses of the tournament, and it looked like they weren't there. So he is a super sub at this point. But the question is, does he need to be a starter? And those are the things that Dean Khoury needs to figure out. The last match against Guadalupe, he started. He didn't play the best match of his career, but he was dangerous. He gave one of the players of Guadalupe a red card. So of his actions led to the red card. So yeah, he's one to watch out for, and we're very happy with him. We're very happy with him because he's always dangerous.
And now that there are only 4 teams left in the Gold Cup, I want to just rapid fire some questions. Hear your thoughts. I guess Qatar made the semifinals, which a bit of a disappointment for the region, maybe, whatever your opinion is. I guess just in general, do you have an opinion on guest teams at the Gold Cup? Do you think it should be an all CONCACAF tournament, or should we have one or two guest teams?
So without a doubt, Qatar is the best vacation in the Caribbean. That's no. If you want sun and island, Qatar is the place to be. Yeah, I do have a little bit of a problem with it because look in CONMEBOL they also do it, right? They take some guest teams, Jamaica, Qatar I believe did it once, Japan, Mexico. But the problem with CONCACAF is you're offering up one spot. So that could have been Curacao. That could have been a legit team from this
Yeah.
region, and that is why I do have a problem with it. Um, yeah, the only thing I can say about is that I enjoyed seeing Qatar play. It is a team to watch out for. It is a team who could win it all. That will make it even more of a drama. But yes, in general, I'm against it, but it is in this Gold Cup what it is. And I saw Qatar play. They played the match against Honduras, fully packed stadium, nobody with masks on. It was a surreal experience again. Honduras packed that stadium. The atmosphere was awesome, but the level of play of Qatar is something to watch out for. They actually all play in Qatar itself, so I think they're getting another type of training because all the national teams they just pick the best players, put them together and sort something out in 3 weeks. I think Qatar really trains and you can see that they don't make a lot of collective mistakes. They really know where their teammate is. So you need to watch out for the team and they're playing some pretty football.
I had a few more questions, but we're not quite going to have time because of the technical issues at the beginning. So the last thing I wanted to ask you, just quickly, what's your prediction for the rest of the tournament? Who's going to win?
So it's a little bit difficult for me to say because I was with the Suriname camp and I couldn't see the other matches because it wasn't in my hotel room, for example. But what I saw is I really like Mexico, man. I think Mexico is playing the highest level of football of this tournament. So the prediction is that Mexico will win Qatar in the final. Is that even possible? Yeah,
It's
that's possible,
possible.
right? Yeah, that's my prediction. I love. I think Hector Herrera is a very special talent. He plays in for the champion of Spain, so yeah, that says something. Alvarez is very underestimated. He plays for Ajax, so it's teammate of Kleiber. But Mexico has some special talent, and what Mexico does have, which I like most about Mexico, is that they have the pretty football that we want to play out of Suriname, the possession based, etc., etc. But they also have, oh, you guys want to play hard? No problem. Then they play hardball with you. So that's the reason why I like this Mexican team.
Well, the correct answer actually was Canada's going to beat Mexico 6-0.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
no.
And you have that.
Anyways, we really appreciate you coming on again, Dion. Yeah, I hope we can have you more on in the future because you're a great guest to have. It's great to get a perspective from other parts of the region. So thanks a lot.
Anytime, man. Just say the word.
Welcome to MyBookie. You're ready to create an account and start making money, and we're here to help. And remember, you can get a bonus of up to $1,000 on your first deposit. Now you're ready to bet. Just go to mybookie.ag, visit the sportsbook, click on your bet, and input the amount you want to risk or win in the bet slip. Yes, it's that easy. Just remember, at MyBookie, you play, you win, you get paid.
Welcome back to the show. We're going to talk a bit about the women at the Olympics. For this segment, we've got Meaghen Johnson from TSN, who is definitely our biggest guest yet. So thanks a lot for coming on, Meaghen.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
So yeah, we're through to the quarterfinals. It's going to be against Brazil, so that's going to be a fun match. Yeah, the first thing I wanted to talk about, I guess maybe not as bright as the matches themselves, but yeah, it's something you put on Twitter that I thought was important to bring up. So I guess for people that might not be following this, Quinn came out as transgender a few months ago, and yeah, so and I guess as a non-binary person, you refer to them with the they them pronouns, and that's something that Nigel Reid didn't do for the first match, and subsequently apologized for, and has proceeded to do for the rest of the tournament. Do you want to talk a bit about that?
Sure, yeah. I will say Nigel Reid is not the first broadcaster to get Quinn's pronouns wrong. It has happened before. It's happened in the NWSL where they play for OL Reign. Excuse me. It's really unfortunate, to put it lightly. And I will say it's so important to get that aspect and those aspects of Quinn's identity right. And honestly, it is a simple thing to check. On Canada Soccer's website, they've listed the pronouns for every player, Quinn being the only one currently on the team that does use the they them pronouns. And it's just so important, I think, for the LGBTQ plus community, and specifically the transgender community, that we're not misgendering Quinn, that we are using their correct pronouns. So I know Nigel Reid, as you said, he did apologize on Twitter. He did say he misspoke. Unfortunately, he did do it more than once, though, in that opening game. And I do believe in the game this morning that he did slip up again and used her for Quinn. But honestly, it's something that takes practice. You will slip up. I've done it myself in conversations. It's just something that takes the practice, and like you catch yourself, you correct yourself, and you move on. And as I said, I just think it is so important that we do, as broadcasters, as journalists, that we get these things right.
Yeah, and this isn't me calling out Nigel Reid or anything, because when someone makes it clear that they've made a mistake, it's a lot more important to recognize that than to, blast down on them being a bad person or something, because I don't think that's the case here. Slip-ups are going to continue. Hopefully I don't do it in this broadcast, but it's definitely something important to recognize. I'm glad we talked about it. So now on to the Olympics themselves. I just want to start off going game by game. The first game against Japan, I think Canada played relatively well. I think we controlled the game definitely better than the 4-0 friendly we had earlier in the year. But yeah, just I guess in general, what do you think went right? What do you think went wrong in that game?
Yeah, as you said, definitely better than that 4-0 defeat that came just after the 2019 World Cup. And I feel probably at that time the team was still in a bit of disarray, I think, from the loss. Obviously, I wasn't privy to watch that game, being on the other side of the world, and there wasn't a stream available. But just from the clips I have seen, obviously not Canada's best effort. They definitely came out on the front foot in that game. You saw that in the opening 5 minutes with Sinclair's goal. I would say, yeah, what went wrong is just uncharacteristic defensive lapses, honestly. And you kind of saw that this morning in the game against Great Britain. If there's one thing the Canadian women are known for, it's their back lines, the strength of their back line. And as I said, it was just a few uncharacteristic moments in that game against Japan where you saw it on the goal itself. Zadorsky and Buchanan just Iwabuchi was able to slip in between them. And even Kaylin Sheridan, who's a very strong keeper, I argue she should be Canada's starting goalkeeper, not a knock against Steph Labbe, who is fantastic as well. But if you know Kaylin Sheridan, if you follow her career in the NWSL with Gotham FC, formerly Sky Blue, she's phenomenal, and she's been a star for that team for many years. So to see that goal that she let in against Japan, I just come back to the word again of uncharacteristic. She's usually very strong positionally, and in that particular goal, she was just caught out of position. So yeah, it was a bit of a mixed bag in that game, I would say. Some good and some bad from the team.
You mentioned the Japanese sort of slipping through our defense, and that kind of reminded me to bring this up, that we played with a higher back line than we have in the friendlies in this tournament, I think. Would you agree?
I think, yeah, I would agree in that particular game. Yeah, it was probably a little less structured on the back line than Canada tends to be. So yeah, maybe taking a few more chances that way.
Well, for me, that the approach was sort of to help a kind of stagnant offense that we saw in the friendlies against Brazil and the Czech Republic, I believe. Mm-hmm. And yeah, do you think that's a good approach to take for, you know, an offense that sort of struggled to sort of get it flowing?
I'm not sure I have that answer, to be honest. Okay. I think, as I said, Canada's strength is their back line. And I understand, obviously, trying to ignite the offense, as you said, it can be stagnant, and certainly was stagnant in those two friendlies you mentioned in Brazil and Czech Republic. For me, I think more of the issue right now is in their midfield. I don't think Bev Priestman has found the right chemistry there and the right combinations. I actually just wrote about this morning for my article on tsm.ca, but she's tried 3 different combos now in each of the 3 games. The first game against Japan, it was Scott, Quinn, and Fleming. Second game, Grosso came in for Quinn, and Quinn ended up subbing into the game later. And then today against Great Britain, you had Schmidt, Becky came back into the midfield, and then Quinn as well started. And so Priestman, she's obviously still trying to figure it out in the midfield. To me, the strongest I've seen Canada's midfield this year was in the She Believes Cup when Lawrence was in the midfield with Quinn and Fleming. And that's definitely the strongest I've seen Canada's mid. It's the most dynamic they've been, and it's the most Jessie Fleming performance. Like her iconic just Jessie Fleming performance, where she's pulling the strings of the Canadian attack. She's getting forward. She's creating those chances. And we really haven't seen that from Fleming yet in these Olympics. She's been very quiet for her, especially. So just talking about the offensive struggles and trying to ignite Canada's attack, I think that starts in the midfield first and figuring things out there.
Yeah, that's a fair observation. Maybe that has more to do with it. Yeah, I'm not going to lie. I did not get up in time for the Britain game today. So I missed it myself. I hate to say it. You, maybe mostly for me, more than me for the audience, but do you want to clear up, what'd you think today of their performance?
Rather similar to their performance against Japan, where mixed bag. It was okay. The first half, I will say, awful, and that's not just for Canada. That was Great Britain too. Neither team could get into a rhythm, and neither team seemed to really care, honestly, if they scored or not. It was, if you didn't get up for Canada Great Britain, you definitely didn't get up for the USA Australia game before that at 4 a.m. But very similar. The two teams just, again, it was more about they didn't want to get scored against rather than trying to press forward and get the goals themselves. And it was like that, at least in the first half for Canada, Great Britain. Opened up a bit in the second half, especially when Adrienne Leon got her goal. And talking about that goal, that was almost all Ashley Lawrence. And I want to say it, I did say this on Twitter, I don't think we talk enough about her. I think people know she is a good player. I don't think people really appreciate how good of a player she is. Like, she almost single-handedly set up that goal with a run down the left flank, crossing it in for Leon. It was very similar, actually, to the goal that Lawrence set up in the 2016 Olympics in the bronze medal match against Brazil, where same thing, she made that great run down the left side and then crossed it in for Deanne Rose. So a lot of similarities there. I think Lawrence has been fantastic this whole tournament. She's played every minute so far, and she showed again why she's a world-class player. But again, going back to just the mixed bag so far that it's been for Canada and the inconsistencies, it came back again just to another defensive lapse and another late defensive lapse. This goal also came in, I believe it was in the final 5 minutes of regulation time. The goal against Japan was in the final 10 minutes of the game. I think it was the 84th minute. And again, I just want to come back to the word uncharacteristic, because we just don't see that from Canada a lot. Usually they are very good at locking it down in the back line. And Great Britain was pressing a lot more, especially after they got scored on. They were bringing on more of their big guns. Ellen White came off the bench, Fran Kirby as well in her first appearance in the tournament. So 2 very prominent goal scorers. And it was a bit of bad luck on the goal itself. It did come from just Canada's inability to clear, unfortunately. And then a shot from well outside the box from Caroline Ware just takes a fluke deflection off Nichelle Prince. Steph Labbe is caught going the complete wrong way, can't recover in time. And it's just one of those goals that almost happens in slow motion where you can see it happening and then it's in the back of the net. So unfortunate, definitely. But if you're, optimist outlook, glass half full, Canada is still undefeated in these Olympics. 2 draws, 1 win, arguably should have been 3 wins. But again, they've set themselves up for hopefully some success going into the knockout round.
And not to keep being pessimistic, but something our previous guest last week, when we were speaking about the Olympics, Alex Gagne-Ruzic, he emphasized that if Canada was going to go somewhere in this tournament, it was going to be because of our solid backline, because we have held some very good teams to clean sheets. But yeah, we haven't done that once in this tournament. And that has been a pretty big surprise to me. I guess just beyond maybe the high backline we were talking about, beyond the defensive lapses, what do you think has gone wrong for them this tournament, like specifically?
Yeah, again, I'm not too sure I have that answer. I keep using the word, but just uncharacteristic, and I'm not too sure why that is, to be perfectly honest, especially on their back line, because there really haven't been too many changes there. I talked about the midfield and trying to find the chemistry there. But yeah, the back line, I'm not too sure. There's just been some odd decisions, I will say, on the field itself. I think, I think of that goal that Chile ended up scoring on the penalty, but what led to it is Zadorsky deciding to slide when she really didn't need to slide. Like, Buchanan was in stride with the player at the time, and Zadorsky made the decision to slide and try to win the tackle there, and I don't think she needed to. So just these decisions are costing them so far. So but I will say there's a lot of experience on this team, and a lot of Olympic experience too. Speaking of Zadorsky, she's been there before. She was a part of the team in Rio. So I think they do have the personnel and the experience and the veteran leadership to kind of rally and refocus and get set.
I do apologize if I'm asking these questions that are difficult to answer. It stems from like this inconsistency we've seen from this team over the past year. I remember after the Wales and England friendlies, I was really excited to see what this team could do under Priestman ball, as everyone's been calling it. But yeah, I guess it just hasn't lasted into this tournament. Sort of a good example of this on an individual basis has been, I think, Janine Becky, who everyone was very angry at after the first game. We saw people saying she shouldn't be starting anymore. And then she went on to score 2 goals in the second game. Do you think she's had a good tournament overall?
Overall, yes, I do. Yeah, I think I was a bit disappointed in her performance in the first game as well. I wouldn't go as far as to say she shouldn't start. I think that's ridiculous. I think she's still one of the best players that Canada has.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think if you know Janine at all, she would be the first one to tell you that she didn't play up to her potential in that first game. She's always been very honest, especially in her self-assessment, very open about it. So I think one of the great strengths about her is her strength of character, is her mental strength. And I think you saw that especially in that second game against Chile, where unfortunately she did miss that penalty again. And knowing what happened in the 2019 World Cup, I think that easily could have derailed her or derailed any player. But you saw, I think what was great is you saw her immediate reaction. There wasn't, hands on the head, like any kind of despondency there. She just kept playing, like right away. She kept her head up, and even after she scored that first goal, you saw again her reaction is she went to the tee, like she was obviously pumped. She gave a fist pump, but she went to her teammates. She gathered her team, and she was talking to them and giving them instructions and giving them leadership. And that's, again, I think, beyond her abilities on the pitch and her technical prowess and her ability to put the ball in the back of the net. It's her unsung qualities. It's her leadership. And I think, come the day that Christine Sinclair does retire, knock on wood, maybe a few more years, I think Never, right, exactly. If Meaghen can play well into her 40s, so can Christine Sinclair. Absolutely. But I think with Janine, and not only her, as I said, there's a lot of great leaders on that team, but I think Janine is a very strong candidate to be Canada's next captain for sure.
Just to keep going player by player here, I guess before this tournament, there was a lot of questions over who would be our main options going forward. And a lot of people wanted to see Evelyne Viens be more involved in the build-up rather than what we continue to see, which is Nichelle Prince. Do you think she's done a decent job to win that forward spot in the lineup this tournament?
Decent job, yes. She got the start today, and I will say, I think she's still learning the international game. And again, I think she'd be the first one to tell you that. I had the chance to speak to her during or just after the She Believes Cup, where she made her international debut, and she said exactly that. She's still learning the nuances of the game, learning how fast the international game is and can be compared to club play. Just to answer your question, I don't think she would start, say, in front of like Nichelle Prince or anyone like that, because Viens, and Bev Priestman has said as much, is an out-and-out number 9. I don't think you'll see her on the wing. So basically, it's a position if Sinclair isn't starting, which was the case today, or if Bev isn't going with Jordan Huitema, although Huitema can shift over to the wing and did do that in the game today, Viens is going to be that number 9 for Canada.
We've already brought up Christine Sinclair a few times, which is kind of inevitable whenever we're talking about the women's team, because I don't know, it's centered around her forever. But yeah, has she been that key player who needed her to be in this tournament?
Oh, I think so. I think she just continues her remarkable career. Again, you're talking in that game against Japan, which is her 300th cap, which is another record for Canada. She scores her, I believe it's 187th international goal. And again, just 5 minutes in, it's quite remarkable that she is 38 and she is just she hasn't lost her stride. Although, having said that, just choosing my words there, yeah, she's probably not as fast as she once was, but I do love that she's adapted that role, not only now for Canada, but we see her play with Portland as well. She's playing more in that false 9 role where she is dropping back a bit and she's letting the wingers move up and push forward more, but she's finding that space a bit further back, and she's still able to find those seams and find those spaces. And I think that goal against Japan was a prime example where a lot of people might say like, oh, it was luck. She was in the right place at the right time. It's like, nope, she knew where to go. Like, she always knows where to go to be in position, to be able to put the ball in the back of the net and to make it look easy, quite frankly.
A very similar question about Jessie Fleming. Well, it's not getting repetitive, but yeah, she needs to be a key player going into this tournament. Similar question for her, has she been that key player?
She hasn't yet, unfortunately, and I touched on this a bit earlier, and I say this as a huge fan of Jessie Fleming. I think she is one of the future stars for Canada. I think she's already a star, quite frankly. And, as I said, she's really the one that is always kind of pulling the strings of Canada's attack. She's the one with those through balls or the long balls. She has fantastic vision, fantastic creativity, and is really able to connect with her teammates. And we haven't seen that yet, unfortunately. I think we saw a bit of it in the latter half of the game against Chile. I think you saw it more actually when Quinn ended up subbing on and Grosso came off. I think there's just more familiarity there between Quinn and Fleming, and it just allowed Fleming to get a little further up the pitch and to start creating those chances again. But yeah, I don't think we've seen the true Jessie Fleming yet in this tournament. I think back to the 2016 Olympics in Rio, especially that game in the bronze medal match against Brazil, where Fleming was fantastic. She had a hand in both goals, but especially that second goal where she helped create the turnover, ended up feeding to Rose, who passed it into Sinclair for the game-winning goal. So no, we haven't seen, as I said, the true Jessie Fleming yet, but hopefully, yeah, good things are to come from her.
We've spoken about a lot of the lineup already. I guess I'm just curious, is there anyone else who you think is notable for better or for worse? I know you were impressed by Grosso and Rivière's debuts.
Yeah, definitely them. I thought they were both very strong. We've talked about Quinn a bit. I just want to say their performance, I think this entire year has been amazing. I think that started for them at the She Believes Cup in that game against the Americans and has just continued for them. I think they've probably been Canada's standout player this entire year and are just really playing with a confidence I don't think we've really seen from them before. They tend to just be all over the pitch. They're disrupting the opposition's attack, but they're also connecting with their teammates really well. So Quinn, just really continues to impress.
And yeah, I guess just while we have 5 minutes left, maybe just a bit more of a tactical discussion. So yeah, have there been any strange tactical decisions you've noted, or different tactical decisions you've seen from Bev Priestman in this tournament that you maybe wondered about, or maybe you think have worked out decently on either side of the spectrum?
Not especially. I did find it interesting, the lineup she rolled out today, the starting 11. It was kind of clear that, I think anyway, that probably winning the group wasn't her priority. She made a lot of changes, gave a lot of players rest, and obviously the players need the rest going into the knockout stage. But it is just interesting to look at because arguably, had they won the group, and they were in a position to do so anyway, again, arguably it's an easier path for them in the knockout stage. That being said, it's still the Olympics. When you reach the knockout stage, you're playing a top tier team basically every game, no matter where you are. So I'm sure that was a factor into her decision making today in terms of bringing in a lot of new players. For instance, like Vanessa Gilles, she made her Olympic debut today, but she was fantastic. Again, kind of like Quinn, Gilles has just been fantastic all year and a real bright spot for Canada.
It's going to be a tough road to another medal with the bracket we're in right now, starting with Brazil. What do you think we need to focus on for that game?
I think it kind of, again, comes down to what we've talked about and just securing their back line and making sure they are tight defensively, because Brazil, as you know, has a phenomenal attack, a lot of creative players up front, and then obviously Davinia, Marta, all the usual suspects there. So I think they do have to make sure that, they have things sorted out on their back line. And I think they have to have a short memory, quite honestly, because they haven't had a lot of success against Brazil in recent matches. It was a 0-0 draw in their most recent friendly, but the She Believes they lost 2-0, I believe. There was a 2-2 draw before that, and then there was another 4-0 loss that came right after their 4-0 loss to Japan. So I think I would wager a guess that a lot of the players aren't going to put any bank on the fact that they did beat Brazil in the bronze medal match in 2016. Both teams have had a lot of changes since then. Pia Sundhage is now the head coach for Brazil, and she's brought a lot of structure to their backline, because usually their backline just hasn't been their strong point, but they've been a lot better defensively since Pia came on board. So I think Canada knows it's going to be a tough match, but I think it is a winnable match for them for sure. Again, despite the lack of recent success against Brazil, they still do tend to match up well against them.
Meaghen, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me.